Hi everybody and welcome to this exclusive edition of Return of the Hack. We've got an in-person panel discussion. I've got some fantastic guests joining me. I'm your host Neil Langridge, the Marketing Alliance Director at E92+. So to kick off, get everybody introduced. I'm joined by Deryck Mitchelson, who's the Field CISO at Checkpoint. Froggett, who's the CISO at Deep Instinct, and James Hickey, who's the Director of Sales Engineering at Cofense. Hi everybody, thank you for coming along.
Hi Neil.
Thank you. Hi Neil, thank you.
So, subject today, we're all talking about, obviously, AI, timed it perfectly. As I saw this morning, it's the 2024 is the year of Terminator starting. So we are fishy in the future of robots and Skynet and everything like that. Obviously, AI, though, it has been a big topic that's kind of risen up. It's been around for a very long time, all the way back from kind of computers beating us at chess, and it's evolved a hell of a lot more. But it's mostly been in the background. Obviously, a couple of years ago, ChatGPT launched, and I think that changed everybody's public awareness of what AI was and how they interacted with it on a daily basis, rather than something happening on computers in the background. So I think if we kind of have a starting point, start with you, Deryck, in terms of your perspective of where cybersecurity is at the moment, in terms of its relationship with AI, both from a good perspective and a bad.
I think it's maturing, and I think it's a good thing it's maturing. I think the maturity of machine learning and AI has caught a few people on the hop, and I think businesses are absolutely right to look to use it for competitive advantage, to be more efficient in how they run their business. That's what they want to do, but they need to do that at the same time as they understand the risks around what this technology can do. And the only real way, I think, to counter the AI threat is to counter it with AI defences as well. It's fighting AI fire with fire. So that's why I'm saying I think it's maturing. It's not quite there yet. There's a lot of capability. There's a lot of maturity that needs to take place. For example, if you were having a look at some of the recent breaches that we've had with injecting synthetic media into Zoom calls, etc. Yep. We're not quite at the space where Zoom and Teams will actually recognise it's an AI-generated, avatar, or it's something that's digital that doesn't exist. We want to get to that place where we make it easy to consume AI in a safe way, and it's going to take a bit of time to get to that place.
Yep, but I suppose we're on there. There's a lot of learning.
On the journey.
Yes, absolutely. Carl, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think... I agree with what Deryck said, right? But from a slightly different perspective, there's AI in security operations. Certainly, I see that been maybe the more immediate impact of automation. If you think of things that exist today, automating security operations, because it's usually a lot of data, a lot of event data that you got to correlate with vulnerability data and so on and so forth. So I see that from a defensive posture, probably the more immediate hit. Certainly to companies from that cyber perspective. What we also see is the bad actors, right? They're already, I mentioned deep fakes, deepfake audio, hyper realistic. So if you think of the attack chain, for example, the bad actors are already using it for reconnaissance, delivery, etc., etc. So I think the one thing about AI is the pace of innovation is something that I haven't seen in a long time, right? You mentioned ChatGPT. ChatGPT 5 is coming out. I think they're aiming for summer, and it's another leap above 4.
Yeah.
So the rate of change is going to be something that catches a lot of people on the back foot. And the bad actors, like I say, they're not constrained by anything, so they're rushing ahead without those constraints, right? So interesting times.
Yeah, and just on those, I suppose there's it's a bit of a challenge. We were actually discussing kind of compliance and kind of putting those guardrails in, and those guardrails are something that obviously the bad actors
just take out.
Undoubtedly take out. Yeah, completely. Yeah, James, from your perspective.
Yeah, no, I mean, following on from what Carl says, it's kind of like it's an arms race, right? Yep. So the threat actors are using it to kind of do more of what they're doing and try and be more efficient at doing that. And then we've got security operations teams who are essentially using it to try and defend the organization and and utilize the capabilities in that way. So it's not like one side has, suddenly just captured AI and is now, getting, winning the war, so to speak. It's become available to everybody at the same time. And I think everybody's scrambling now to sort of understand, well, how can this help me defend an organization? Whereas a threat actor, well, how can we use this to, speed up and make the whole attack process more efficient? So, I mean, I see AI as something that, it's very good at automating a series of complicated steps in a process. So if you think about, the information age, we use computers to start to automate things to make things faster. AI basically takes that a step forward and says, right, well, we'll take all these automated things that we've got, which could be a really complex set of steps through a process, and we're just going to get AI to do that for us. And there may be some decision points, within that process that the AI is then able to kind of take an action on. I think there's a certain amount of hysteria around it at the moment as well, right? This you talk about the Terminator thing, right? I mean, you talk about AI and everyone starts thinking that these robots are going to burst out of the cupboard and start gunning everybody down in the street. And I don't see it that way. It's not, it's not really what you would describe as intelligent. It's not sentient. It's an uptick in the ability to automate a process, essentially.
Well, at some point they'll have to patch themselves, and then they'll be unusable, and that'll be our time to be able to defend ourselves. But I think it's an interesting thing on kind of AI as well, and a lot of technology kind of, when you get these innovations and these jump forward, goes in a kind of certain direction, but kind of thinking about kind of AI kind of goes in two opposite directions very quickly at the same time. There's the scale you talk about, being able to do huge amounts of kind of data processing in terms of that analysis, but there's also the kind of going in the opposite direction of a huge level of detail, of being able to, kind of create kind of, whether it's phishing emails or personalization at a very, very kind of very, very micro level, a hyper personal type approach. And it's kind of, that's an interesting direction, that the fact that it's going in two competing areas incredibly quickly. Does that, as from a defensive perspective, kind of battling against bad actors, does that kind of present a bit of a challenge, that it's going, in both of those ways, scale and detail at the same time? Or is it just more of everything?
I think it is. I think it is the challenge.
Yeah.
There's no surprise that we're seeing the phishing epidemic we're seeing. That's getting driven absolutely by AI that's writing both spear phishing and targeted phishing, that's cutting through a lot of the email security that we're actually seeing that's in place. So, I mean, that's not a surprise that we're seeing this. We're seeing similar things with DDoS attacks that are getting to an extent in scalability and multi-vector attacks like we've never seen before. And again, AI is absolutely starting to learn what is successful, what good looks like at the same time. So the threat is getting much bigger from it. Yeah. There's no doubt it will continue to get to the point whereby it will deliver payloads that will start to go after certain types of data. So instead of sitting there and waiting to exfiltrate, the AI will actually be able to learn to understand what's the most commercially sensitive data and start to take it. So the controls we put in place that we're trying to develop to defend against that, they're going to have to mature. And they can't just mature in isolation, is my concern with where we are from defending, because we know the attack surface is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So we need to use AI to protect our public clouds, to protect our phishing our email. We need to use AI to protect our endpoints, our laptops, our mobiles in particular, any devices. We need still got a perimeter. We've got our SD-WAN type connectivity that we're trying to protect as well, network security. So we need to get to a point. I mean, I know you're talking, Carl, about automation, and I agree with that. And the automation needs to get to the extent it matures, and it's able to understand where the real-time threat is. What vector is it actually targeting? And that's where we need to get to the defensive capability for. So if it's an email threat, we don't take our eye off what's happening on the perimeter or what's happening on the cloud.
And that's it. So my past role with security operations, when I talk about automation, I'm not just talking about, a SIM and a SOAR platform, right? So if I think of patching and vulnerabilities, right? So last year, CVEs, we had about 26,500 CVEs, around 97 0 days that were exploited before they were even known about, right? So if I take that one kind of case from an automation perspective, the attack surface I had at City was, roughly a million endpoints, 300,000 network devices, right? So you try and model the vulnerabilities, the patching you need to do, where they are, the exploits against them, right? I mean, that was a big team of people that were doing that with a great sense of urgency, especially for the higher ones. This is where I when I think of automation, I'm on about those really big, complicated things that will help you do the basics really, really well, right? But I mean, AI is just everywhere right now. I mean, you can, it was just on the news as I was on the way here, right? There's now an AI, I think Thomson Reuters have released an AI legal, right? Co-pilot kind of, a legal analyst as an AI, right? So it's omnipresent across businesses and not just cyber, but within cyber, there's so many places it can go. Because, as you say, Deryck, the attack surface is so complicated now, it's just getting worse, right? And we basically need a different approach to be able to do those basics well to defend.
Yeah.
All right, and I think AI is going to play a massive role there.
And it's kind of cybersecurity is obviously going to be key for a lot of CIOs and their digital strategy. But look, there was a kind of report out recently, and cybersecurity was high up in the list. It was number 2, which was great. But operations was the priority in terms of the use and deployment of AI. And kind of I think that again the stats are kind of, there was a CompTIA survey. Quarter of organisations have it as an absolute priority in terms of aggressively driving AI, and a third have it kind of fairly significant, or they're building out a strategy. But from a cybersecurity perspective, is that kind of useful in a way that there'll be a lot of learnings from organisations in terms of how they're deploying? I mean, both of you kind of obviously had kind of CISO roles, within end user organisations. So, is there a lot of learnings that they're going to be able to take businesses from use of AI outside of cyber, that they can then take that practical experience, even though it's an incredibly short and compressed period, and then being able to understand how to effectively deploy and use technology like this at scale?
It needs to be, and there'll be a lot of mistakes made at the same time, and that's what I'm fearful for. That the race to have this technology embedded in organisations will leave them vulnerable. You wouldn't implement other solutions at such a pace without making sure that you've got your segmentation correct, that you're understanding what it's trying to learn, what access to what. I come from a healthcare background, and this petrifies me, thinking that AI is able to actually start looking and learning from your medical records as to what it's trying to do, and potentially that the medical records could end up in some large data lake somewhere that the other AI is able to learn from your data, and it's a brilliant thing. But I just think we need to step back slightly and secure by design AI, please, every time. Don't rush, don't run. That's what my ask would be.
Yeah, those guardrails aren't there, right? I don't think right now. And you got most AI today's in the cloud.
Yep.
Right. So again, I think I just did my tax return in the US, right? So there were warnings about, not that I would do it, but don't put your tax return into a chat GPT and ask it, right? Because of exactly that. And medical records, and then company data, obviously, and whatever. So, yeah, there's the on-premise piece, but, and guardrails. And to be honest, I think CTOs or CIOs, along with CISOs, are going to have a tough couple of years. Because as we always see, right, it's the innovation of AI, and then security comes after, right? That's been my career pretty much. So yeah, I'm sure from that business perspective. But I think as you were asking the question, I was thinking of big data and data science, right? So yes, I see that companies will have centers of excellence in AI, right? That drives not only cyber but business, just like certainly I experienced with big data and data science kind of things.
And I think what I worry about to some degree with the AI thing is, I mean, it's actually more of an age-old problem, but it's this idea that oh, this technology's, so good it's got my problem wrapped up, right? It's this reliance on technology. And again, I've been doing the role I've been doing now for 7 years. And in the sales engineering side, you get in and out of a lot of different organizations, meeting all these things, big brand companies and all the rest of it. So you get a very unique perspective on a lot of different places. And you will still find people in security roles who genuinely believe that the technology is going to solve the problem. And yet there's other organizations. I was in, tier 1 bank in Germany about a month ago, who, they have an entire, really well-funded project around something called the human firewall. Because despite all the money they might spend on technology and cyber, they recognize the importance of the human being in that cyber defense chain. And that's certainly, that's a message that we try to hammer home as well, right? You can bring in the technology. Technology is very good at automating, specific steps in the process. But at some point, you need human eyes on, right? Or you need some level of human decision factor. Because to give that entire problem, right, which in many cases is a real furball, just to technology, and then expect that the technology is going to sort out because the salesman that sold it to you told you 100% fixes your problem, Mr. Customer. I mean, it's just a bad idea, right? And ultimately, you're on the path to being breached, right? I try and, tell this to people. It's like, if you do that, if you rely on the technology, if you rely on your security gateway or whatever it might be, ultimately, you're on the path to being breached. It's not if, it's just a question of when. So, yeah, I think that's kind of one of the things is that there is a lot of hype, right? And there's a lot of people out there doing some really amazing things with AI, right? But from my point of view, it's another technology piece which adds value, right, in certain areas, but don't 100% rely on it.
Yeah, I think that's correct. I mean, again, getting back to my healthcare analogy, would you want to have an earlier diagnosis of, cancer or mammography, retinography? Absolutely, AI is going to be fantastic in that space. Yep. What it will do is it will focus the exceptions, and it'll give you that 99.99% guardrail that says you're actually okay. And that's what you want it for. And then you want the consultant coming in on that small exceptional case, because it helps with the waiting times and the queues and the issues. They can concentrate on looking at the cases that probably they need to speak to, rather than focusing on looking at the results, trying to understand. But you need to do that in a way that's safeguarded with the guardrails around it, because otherwise what you start to do is you start to lose control of all that sensitive and confidential data that's sitting in there. And despite somebody coming in and selling it to you and saying, here's the solution and it is safe, I always say, well, you need to do your due diligence yourself. You can't assume because someone's come in and sold you the solution that data is safe and it can't be scraped. And and let's not even get to the point of some of these data lakes get poisoned as to what that actually means for starting to provide healthcare. If you don't have trust in that lake, then
hallucination, right?
I think the subject of guardrails, I think, is a really interesting one, and because it can apply in lots of different ways. There's a kind of an internal guardrails of there's a limit to what the technology can achieve. Obviously, you both worked in highly regulated industries around healthcare and banking, so there's a real compliance, and we can see the challenges that either nation states or larger groups of states like the EU have in terms of trying to come up with what those kind of effective guardrails could be, but also arguably us as an industry as well, of making sure that we have some controls over what we're promising and not promising. But actually, are those internal guardrails kind of in a way the most important ones to make sure that a company is not trying to run before they can walk, that they do have kind of controls and constraints about what they're trying to do with the technology, so they're not kind of overexposing themselves a little bit too quickly and relying on it, when actually, to try, because a lot of organizations are going to view it as a competitive advantage, whether it's that kind of data analysis retail is going to see in terms of astonishing levels of consumer behavior and insight, technology companies in terms of being able to kind of leverage that. Having those internal corporate responsibilities, is that going to be actually possibly the most effective way? And that's also going to be able to come in a lot quicker than big complex legislative processes.
Yeah, no, I think in the short to medium term, absolutely right. I mean, generally law and regulation is years behind.
Yep.
right? Let's be honest, and it's not just in AI. So yeah, you're in charge of your own destiny, right? And there's been a few things said. So you mentioned testing, Deryck, right? A lot of people don't test today. They don't test what they have. They don't test from a vendor that they purchased a cybersecurity kind of solution. They might test it at a point in time before they purchase it. They might test it on a major version, right? But they're not constantly testing it day to day. And if they did, they might see some kind of interesting results, right? Because that's what I did at City. And I think on the automation, and I'm really putting my operations hat on now. If I think of Zero Trust, if I think of NAC, Network Admission Control, very few companies actually implemented those today effectively, right? So the whole idea that you're going to have some secret AI, magic AI that's going to do this analysis and then do enforcement of, hey, I'm going to make it right. Companies don't do that today. So I definitely see it initially in the short to medium term being more of a informational kind of, back to your doctor, right? Like here's the view, right? To help with the analysis and not necessarily kind of, kicking the automation in, because the matter of fact is companies struggle with that today. We've had automation for years in, like I say, network admission control and data loss prevention and where you can put enforcement. So you kind of say, hey, this is not to my standard. This is not to my policy. I'm going to block it. And usually what happens is your business kind of says, hey, right, I'm trying to do business, and so you turn it off. So the whole thought that you're going to let this, and it won't be one AI, by the way, it'll be multiple, right? But the whole idea that you're going to let it kind of go rampant and, enforce and really, mitigate the risk by taking action. Companies struggle with that today. So I think that's much further down the road because they've got to be so much more disciplined in their technology stack, be it cloud, be it on-prem, and anything in the middle.
Yeah. Are organisations kind of, I don't know, have they fully got a good grip on what the potential threat can be? Because it feels like AI more so than a lot of cyber. No, I mean, that was arguably a rhetorical question. I think they've arguably got a. I think AI is one of those ones where, again, it's kind of hit the consumer in a way around cybersecurity that a lot of other cybersecurity technologies don't. I mean, consumers don't understand kind of, firewalls or EDR or MDR or PAM necessarily. Some, kind of MFA we know a little bit about, but we're going to see that a lot more. And I suppose, especially from a kind of Cofense perspective, what we're going to potentially see this year, because it's the year of the elections, around things like disinformation, is that, is actually, this is going to be a rare example of a technology where we get a better understanding of it, or we get a better grip on in terms of what the potential downside could be, more so than any other kind of cybersecurity existential risk, because of what we see in our everyday lives. Because I can see a huge amount of fake news, disinformation around the presidential campaigns in terms of, we
don't need AI for that, mate.
Well, no, okay, that's probably true. But in terms of a lot of the stuff that's coming, and the ability to be able to do the kind of the phishing and everything around that, is that something?
Well, I mean,
from your perspective,
the interesting thing with phishing is threat actors use motivators, right? So fear, urgency, risk, reward, this kind of thing. And obviously, the political subject, people obviously, it's quite an emotional or emotive subject for a lot of people, right? Yeah. They see something making some sort of political statement and they feel the need to respond to that. So, I can imagine, certainly scenarios where, emails will get sent with some sort of, political angle, right? And it could be, well designed to evoke a response. Well, guess what the response is, right? Click on the link, right? So, and then, beyond that, there's a whole bunch of other, things that can happen. So I think, from an AI point of view, I know threat actors obviously starting to use this now to really try and create better quality phishing emails. And, long gone are the days where you used to get some sort of email in your inbox with a bunch in Russian, for instance, or it was in English and you could tell it was written by somebody that wasn't a native English speaker. And it just didn't, it was easy to spot, right? Those days are gone, right? And the tactics have changed. I mean, last year, a huge uptake in, what we would call phishing scams. So 85% of those are, the start point is an email, right? So it's an email that lands in your inbox with some sort of motivator and a phone number to dial. And as soon as you dial that number, you're outside the corporate security controls, right? You're on the phone with the threat actors, right? And the email that arrived, was a very well-crafted email with some sort of motivating factor to get you to dial the number. No links, no attachments, nothing for anything really to kind of look at. There's nothing in there that's scammy language that a machine learning algorithm is going to be able to identify. So this stuff just lands in inboxes. It is essentially the problem of the false negative, because the technology can't deal with the false negative, right? If it could, it would have 100% stopped the problem a long time ago, right? So the last line of defense in your organization is essentially the human being, right? It comes back to that whole idea again, right? So yeah, it's a matter of, educating the humans, making sure they understand what the threat is. As you say, like, not everybody really understands the level of the threat, and I think a lot of organizations as well, what they don't tend to realize is that the people who are sending these things are working for very, very large organized crime syndicates that operate on the same basis as a drug cartel. There's a kingpin at the top somewhere. There's lieutenants and sub-lieutenants, and there's an army of extremely capable, well-educated people employed to create phishing attacks and C2 infrastructure and all this kind of stuff, right? And their job is to sit there all day and figure out how to get around, corporate security systems. So one of the things I think I noticed, so there was an article about this the other day, I can't remember where I saw it, was online, and it was talking about the fact that the threat actors realize that organizations are using AI behind the gateway now to try and identify emails, and that the machine learning algorithm is looking at the language in the email to understand it. Does it sound scammy, right? Is there something not right about that? So what they're doing, they're writing the message that to the end user is at the top of the email. And then 12 pages of white space below that, there's a whole, 5 or 6 paragraphs of what would be a legitimate business email, right, in text, in white font, so you can't see it, right? So when it comes through the AI layer, the AI reads all of that and on balance says, this is a legitimate business email, and lets it through. And at that point, it's a false negative, right? So, and that's why you can't rely on that layer, right? You have to have, a human being that's going to look at the actual email and go, looks a bit suspicious, right? Might as well report that to the SOC, right? So that's your last line of defense. And as I say, the threat actors are getting better at understanding what defenses we're using, and they have absolutely enormous resources to be able to do that.
Well, it's the profit, right? So again, let's not talk about nation state, because most people won't be interested in a nation state, but they're motivated by profit. Ultimately that's what it's about, and it's a business, right? It's a business. I've got many stories, and it's a business to the point where people are working for it's a 9-to-5 job for them. So we used to be able to see, we were tracking, I've got to be careful what I say, but we would track, and we could tell you which country they were in, because we would see a dip for an hour. That was their lunchtime. It's a 9-to-5 job for a lot of people, and a lot of people, in these kind of countries, generally not Western and US, but they don't actually realize who they're working for. Right, and so it's kind of bizarre. But what you're explaining is, since I've been doing this for 30 years, right? Bad actors test the defenses. Right. They've got all the time in the world, right? They can probably purchase it, work around it. If you Google EDR bypass, there's so many kind of things, right, where that's what they do, right? Because at the end, if they can work around, be it phishing, be it endpoint, be it malware protection, whatever, right? they're in it for the money. They're in it for the profit, right?
Yeah,
whatever that is, be it ransomware with encryption or just ransomware with data exfiltration or both, right? Ultimately, they're in it for the money, right? I mean, you must see that.
See that all the time. And two interesting things, because you mentioned both working in a regulated industry, which you've done as well as me, Carol, and you also mentioned the boards understand the threat.
Yeah.
I think that goes hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
I think in regulated industries, boards probably understand the threat better because it's regulated.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you're talking about unregulated, it tends to be on the risk register. So the threat has, the risk and the impact has at some point been communicated up to the board. But what I often see is that the board don't actually understand what this means as far as the business impact, the resilience, the continuity of the organisation.
Yeah.
They come out after the attack and talk about, we take your cybersecurity very seriously and we safeguard your data. And then a day later, they start to leak that some data was lost, and then it becomes some financial data, then personal data. And then they say, then they tell you the truth and say it was 2-3 terabytes of data, and it was an impact. And then, of course, they spend the money by throwing in a reactive solution that they then thinks fixes the problem, and then the whole cycle starts again. I think we need to get much better at basic cyber risk management, so the boards really understand what this means as far as them. And I think if we did that, you probably find that you would start to see some of the cyber budgets increasing as they understood that it's no longer a cost to the business, it's actually part of how the business operates. So I think at the moment, regulated industries, I think the boards probably do understand a bit better.
Yeah.
But I think outside that, no, I still see far too many breaches and people talking like it. They actually take it seriously, and you just know it's on a risk register.
Yeah, it comes back to those fundamentals in terms of actually not just the tech, it's the people and processes. That's you've got to get those right before any tech.
That's come up time, right? Like, you can't ignore the people element ultimately. Yep. So totally agree. I'm sure MGM right now are investing in some social engineering and anti-social engineering training, right? What was that, 100 million?
Yep.
All because somebody took a phone call and literally granted the bad guy access to do what they needed to do, right? So, you're not going to get rid of that. And on the risk register, a phrase I heard years ago in Citi was, Citi was a technology company with a banking license.
Yeah.
Every company today is a technology company doing something that that's their core value. And I totally agree. There's too short a term on probably annual profits, right? Shareholders, dividends, and whatever. And obviously, private companies can do the same. But all you got to do is look at the news. There's nothing about last year. If I look at the headlines, if I look at the investments, so I think Gartner said this year we're going to spend 14% more on IT and risk than last year, right? And it's like 188 billion. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. It's huge. And yet every single day you can go and search ransomware breach, whatever, and you will see not just companies that you've probably not heard of, right? Because they're smaller, less regulated, local, whatever, but big companies, right, that you would expect had certainly have the budget, should have the expertise and the experience, certainly buying all the current things, I would say, and yet they fail. And if you look at where they fail, some definitely is around exploits and kind of not CVEs, not aggressively patching, configuration drift, right? There's definitely some basics, but it's phishing. It's phishing, right? I think in the one of the email vendors, right? So there was a 1,297% spike in phishing when in the year ChatGPT was released. Yeah. And it's not just the volume that just shows that it's easy. It's sophisticated. Yeah. It's really. I mean, I get sent things at my work, and I've been doing this for years, and I sit and look at it for a while now. Yeah. They're really, really good, and that's just we're just the thing that scares me is we're just at the start of this generative AI
Yep.
cycle, and the pace of maturity and innovation is pretty scary from my perspective, right?
And what's essential then, I think, two things. One is being able to demonstrate and measure return on investment on what you're doing, which means that you won't then be buying tactical or reactive solution. And the second thing that I don't see enough across the industry is measuring the efficacy of what it is you've actually put in. Too many times I see solutions being implemented, and they just think that then is the answer. They're protected.
And that's back to the testing, right?
Absolutely.
So I was on about the testing where, you're going to spend, I had a very large budget, right? So I'd go and spend, we'd obviously do extensive testing prior and maybe on major versions. And then it was probably 6 or 7 years ago where we started to notice that despite all the investment, we were just seeing more and more, if you think of layers of defense, right? Things were making it through that otherwise shouldn't. So if you think of it that way, that your servers and your storage and your kind of exposed, usually they're the things you're ultimately trying to protect. We were seeing more things get to that point, right? So we started to see and we started to feel that trust but verify, right? But we started to feel that we saw a degradation in the approaches of the technologies that we'd invested in from a cyber perspective, right? So that led to an investment that I made in continuous testing, right? Daily, or certainly weekly testing of malware through every layer, like all the time, right? So obviously we monitored kind of where things were going, and we do a post-mortem. But when you start knocking on the door, it's like daily red teaming almost on your defensive layers. Then you really start to understand the risks, right? And you can be more strategic in your, I'm seeing this degrade over time, right? Obviously you try and work with the vendor or whatever, but ultimately you might have to make a choice of, I'm not going to invest in this anymore. I might have had it for years, but the threat landscape, more complicated, just constantly shifts. And maybe that particular kind of control technology, whatever you purchased, is just never going to be able to shift quick enough, and now you need to learn. That's why I love cyber, because it's never the same year on year, right? I don't think anybody had a quiet year in cyber. No.
But it means it doesn't need, I mean, we talked at the start about the arms race. It doesn't need to be an arms race from a budgeting perspective of 14%, but actually needs to be 20, actually needs to be 25. It's understanding where that investment goes. And also organisation understanding where the AI is in the cyber tools, and obviously the three of you work for vendors that are investing and putting AI in. It's understanding where they can get that best ROI. It's not just about the percentages. It's not about what gets blocked. It's how it does work in that organisation and how it complements how that organisation works in terms of the compliance standards they have to meet, or the other, complementary dovetails with other investments in AI that they've got. So that ROI discussion is going to be very specific to every organisation, but that analysis is arguably the best way of being able to justify and avoid just endlessly spending more and endlessly adding more layers, which only adds complexity and actually a lack of transparency in terms of what an organisation is doing and how effective it is.
Yeah, and I'm coming from a very like the SecOps kind of finance space, so I would see AI. With the automation and that consolidation of data. In the short term, we all have a talent gap, right? I could never hire, I always had open positions. So I kind of see helping there, right? Certainly maybe reducing some of the SOC burnout for level 1, level 2 analysts, right? That's an immediate kind of ROI. It's a very simple one that you can do. The challenge there, though, is, and maybe I'm going old school, right? But, I learned, through experience. So everything from, networking or system administration and cyber, when you've kind of lived and gone through things, that's how we learn. So now if you have, a tool, an AI that's kind of doing that level 1 analysis, the new kind of income, those kind of new people joining cyber, they're not going to get that experience because we now have this tool.
Done it for them.
Right. So I'm struggling internally with what the impact of that is, because I kind of sound old, right? We used to have calculators and now we have spreadsheets, right? Nobody's kind of missing the calculator, right? You know what I mean? So will it become a tool in that way? The way, like I say, the way that, we abacus to spreadsheets kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It's a real difficult, it could have an unintended consequence, is what I'm saying on
we
talent.
talk about them being able to enable staff to be able to focus on high value activities and AI being able to automate. But I suppose if you don't understand a lot of those,
but you have
basics,
the high value staff focused on the high, right? And that's what I'm saying. So when you've got new people who've never had that experience, and that I call it level 1, layer 1 kind of basic thing, and that the experiences of working through that are taken away. What does that mean?
Well, that's just the world we're in, I think, full stop, isn't it? We've got different...
Well, we were all right, so I'm going to retire. So I'm just one about the future, mate, But
is that
it's an unintended consequence.
A lot is going to happen that we just won't see.
Yeah.
We just assume stuff. The AI will take care of a bunch of stuff, and that's great. But actually...
But again, the bad actors are going to... They've already taken the guardrails off, right? So certainly on the dark web, you've got over... I can't remember what my SE said, but there's thousands of LLMs with no guardrails on the dark web. All sorts, right? From phishing to malware to writing the exploits to what's Vigil, the new Vigil one, where it's a physics video. Right. So you can replace an existing person with whoever you want, so you can do the moves and then just overlay, but it understands physics, so it's very realistic in the video. It doesn't, because of the understanding the physics and gravity and all that sort of thing. It's crazy right now. There's so much in this space, and this is what I mean about so much innovation across so many areas, not just cyber, but even if you just look at cyber, right? Yeah. It's quite a ride right now.
And the risk here is China's probably 12 to 18 months behind where we all are with AI. But we just know from the research that we've done that they're investing millions and millions and millions into this capability without the regulations, without the compliance, without any ethics, no guardrails around this at all. And that's where you're going to start seeing this risk coming from. Yeah. Our AI needs to be better, much more innovative. We need to be able to measure the efficacy of our AI because that's where the threat is coming across from. It probably won't be the next 6 to 9 months, 12 months, but that capability is definitely catching up without any of the guardrails around it at all. That's quite a worrying thing.
Well, we'll have to build the power infrastructure too. So, one of the things that China's doing right now, they're building 150 nuclear reactors.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, there's news recently that, people are recognizing that they're going to build a data center to run AI.
Yep.
I mean, what was it? Somebody suggested it would take something like a gigawatt of power to run, ChatGPT, right? Which is 10 daisy-chained, nuclear reactors, right? Yeah. So, that's just one data center just doing the AI calculations, right? Yeah. So, if it is an AI arms race, we need more nuclear power. Yeah, it's as simple as that, right? And we're not building enough of it. So, you can't power an AI data center with a windmill and a solar panel. It doesn't work. So
you got to put the electric car chargers in the car park as well.
Well, there you go. Right. I mean, it's just this is the point, right?
Yeah.
The human race right now, with the AI is kind of what we want to do, but there's a whole bunch of things we're going to have to do just to get to that point, right? And one of those is just deal with the electricity demand, and the power demand that this is going to put on the grids, globally. So.
But then you flip that the other side, because certainly, Citi and many other companies have green initiatives, right? Yeah. So I remember working with the end user compute team on shutting desktops and servers down when they weren't in use. But I'm like, hey, I need a patch.
Yeah.
So unless you want me to patch in the middle of the day, right?
Probably
Like,
don't.
you know, we got to find some. So yeah, as companies embrace AI for business as well as cyber, it'd be interesting to see how firm they hold, because I mean, most, if not all, of the big companies have got some sort of green data center, green initiative, you know, IoT in buildings. There's another cyber podcast, right?
Yep.
Smart lighting, smart thermostat, right? And it was all around, lowering the power and therefore being green.
Yeah.
So that this throws it's a really good point. It throws a massive wrench in the works there.
Incredibly complex. So we're probably just coming up to the end of the discussion from a time perspective. So it's gone really, really quick. So I want to thank you all for coming. So, but I mean, from a kind of a closing perspective on kind of from each of you, in terms of, I think maybe from either from a channel perspective or just from an industry perspective, in terms of, we can't all do everything. The rate of change, the arms race, everything's at scale, everything's moving very, very quickly. But in terms of where the priorities are for us as a cybersecurity industry and a channel, in terms of where we can deliver the best value, kind of quickest, I suppose, the most help to our customers to be able to address the challenge.
I mean, I'll be quite honest. What I always say when I speak to customers or do talks, which is don't believe the hype.
Yeah.
You need to get under the hood of anything somebody's either trying to sell you or speak to you about, or talking about improvements or trying to put in. If you do anything that believes the hype, and someone turns around and says, I've got the latest, greatest AI cyber protection, this is all you put in, it's all you need, I can tell you now, it will not be what you need to do. And I think we just need to get wise that we'll see a lot of AI marketing. It will be in the top of every single mission statement. Every cyber organisation's first thing they'll talk about is it's AI. It's AI. And our AI is better than their AI. They don't really know why. But they'll better just tell you that that's the best AI you can get, and this will stop everything and it will prevent everything. And that's why I do talk about ROI and efficacy, because I think we need to make sure that we're investing properly, looking after the dollars.
Yeah.
And it's an important thing to do, to be able to demonstrate that we've done due diligence when we roll it out internally to use it, but due diligence as well to make sure we protect from any existing threat, just like you would do with anything else you bring in. I wouldn't have brought in a new system into healthcare without understanding the clinical risk around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's critical. Any new scanner you brought in, or new smart lab system, you had to look to understand what it was delivered, and you put safeguards around it. We need to do exactly the same thing with this technology. And we should be able to conquer it, and we should be able to win. It's fine.
Yeah.
No, I agree with the efficacy and the continuous testing, because the threat landscape is rapidly evolving. And too many people, kind of buy something and maybe implement it correctly. But then I'll come back to, if I look at the breaches, I mean, there's many factors, don't get me wrong. But it comes down to poor IT hygiene.
Yep. There's
end of life, things that are not supported, basic patching, configuration assurance and configuration drift, right? Configuration initially is usually too loose, and then it gets looser because over time they're not managing it, and then they're not patching. This is low hanging fruit for a bad actor, right? We've talked about the human element. We're not going to get away from that. Interestingly, I'm kind of sitting here thinking about, we've all been through how many security trainings, right?
Yep.
How are we going to do that? Because we're all sitting here as experts. How do we train the regular business analyst, the regular PA or whatever, right? And help them understand, especially. Yeah, they're the weak link, right? Or the easy target. Mm. And then Deryck mentioned it at the start, fighting AI, bad AI with good AI, right? But then again comes back to the efficacy. But we're going to see a lot of innovation there. But for me, yes, you need an integrated stack and you need to be able to test it, but you can't forget the basics.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think purely from a selfish perspective with regard to the whole kind of phishing thing. I mean, obviously we talk about the fact that phishing is essentially it's 90% of where all breaches begin, right? So it's a good idea to really kind of spend a bit of time and money thinking quite hard about, well, what can we do with that, right? And again, going back to that whole thing about not just relying on the technology, empowering and making it as simple as possible for the human being in the organization to help with that whole human firewall idea, right? And remembering that the human being essentially provides the ultimate backstop, right, when it comes to essentially getting suspicious about a threat or reporting a threat or something like that, right? So again, artificial intelligence, right? It's artificial.
Yep.
Human intelligence is really pretty good.
Yep.
And you have to find a way to tap into that or to utilize it. And when you do, you can really shore things up. So I always look at the problem. Again, take me a long time to sort of boil it down to a simple idea, but and I sort of drew a diagram about this where it's humans, right? It's technology, which includes AI. And then you've got known threats, right, which the technologies are very good at dealing with, and unknown threats, which it's particularly poor at dealing with. But humans are quite good with unknown threats. So if you have a strategy to address all of those areas, and you build that human, verified intel, right, that you can then use in your other technology solutions, you can build a very effective strategy to combat the threat.
Yep.
So, my advice to people is, don't just rely on one thing. Don't just put a security awareness training program in place, right, and hope that you're going to solve the problem, right? Reducing click rates doesn't help you, right? It reduces the risk a little bit, but, if you go from a 30% click rate to a 5% click rate, you've still got 5% of your user population clicking on everything in their inbox every day, right? So it doesn't help you, right? A reporting rate, however, how many people report suspicious emails, that gives you a positive metric, to your point, Deryck, about ROI, that says, well, how is my security awareness program doing, right? Well, if your reporting rate is increasing, then guess what? You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
And that means that more threats are getting to the SOC, and if the SOC have the right tools, the processes, and the human intelligence to address those threats and do it quickly, then you massively reduce the chance of ever being breached. So my advice to people is to take all of those areas and have a strategy in each one of them.
Yeah.
And don't just rely on the fancy, shiny new bells and whistles AI product, right? It's not enough.
I think just to close out, right, you got to be in a preventative posture. So I mentioned kind of network admission control and zero trust and whatever, and companies struggle because they know what the gold standard is. They know what, but they're unable to take a positive action to remove a device off the network that's not patched, right?
Yeah.
To do because they don't understand, or they'll remove it and then somebody complains and they put it back on, and so they get this shot. We've got to be much more proactive and preventative from a threat perspective and a hygiene perspective.
Yep.
Right. I think it's unacceptable in this day and age that people are running end-of-life hardware, end-of-life software. It's crazy from my perspective, right? So much more of a preventative posture than what's most have taken is what I would say.
Yeah. So I think it's a positive note to end on, in the sense of a lot of, for all the talk of the complex, fancy arms race technology, it's making sure that we're doing the fundamentals. We're relatively cautious. We're trusting in human intelligence and not just artificial intelligence. So good point to end on, I think. Well, thank you very much, Deryck, Carl, James. Appreciate all your time. Thank everybody for watching and listening. Enjoy the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.